Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to Heel Shit. On today's episode, pro wrestling news, rumors, spoilers, discussions, and predictions. And your hosts, Dark Cordz and Draven Grimes.
Welcome back to Heel Shit. Revolution Recap. Want to thank everybody for listening and watching and everything. The podcast has blown up really nicely the past week or so. We really appreciate it. Before we get started too much, if you guys could do us a huge favor, like, subscribe to the channel, follow the podcast, Heel Shit Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from. All social media at Heel Shit Podcast. Draven, tell them what we're talking about today.
Well, I think you pretty much nailed it on the head. We are going to be reviewing AEW Revolution from last night. We are recording this first thing Monday morning. Unfortunately, we could not survive after the pay-per-view to try to shoot this. So we're doing this bright and early. As I said last week, I am in my hotel room in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And we may have some difference of opinions when it comes to this pay-per-view, but I'm looking forward to see what you have to say.
Full disclosure, I'm a huge AEW fan. Always have been from the very start. And I think it stems from the fact that I was a big WCW fan. Love WCW, was always on their side on the war. So an alternative to the sports entertainment was really, really kind of exciting to me. But that being said, I might have a couple gripes about last night's pay-per-view. All in all, I thought it was a really good show.
Really?
Yep. All in all, I thought
hold on. You got some difference of opinion rather than it being a great show? Oh, this is going to be a great episode. Hold on. I got to put 2 earbuds in for this one. All right, big man. Let's get into it.
All right. First thing right off the bat, I love Jim Ross. I'm so sad to see him slipping. All right, and if you guys didn't watch the pay-per-view, or if you haven't seen any programming recently with JR on it, he's certainly lost a step, and
he's going downhill for sure. And this all started back when he started his cancer treatment in early 22. So I'm not putting it to anything but just the cancer treatment taking a lot out of him. So especially at his old age, he just can't function as well as he used to.
Right. Yep. And it's sad, but I mean, I guess it is what it is. First match.
It happens to the best of us. I mean, let's be real about it.
And
we only have a finite amount of days. And
he's the best there is. He's the best play-by-play in wrestling history.
Ever.
So, nothing against him. Aging happens. Diseases happen. Poor guy. He's been through a lot.
You just got to know when to hang the boots up, man.
Yeah.
Hang up the boots.
He's been through a lot, but I think because it's JR, as long as he wants to come out there for a few matches, let him come out there for a few matches.
Before we get started, can you tell me which match they switched JR and Tony? Because I didn't realize it until the Texas Death Match.
Yeah, it was. I think it was right after the women's match that they cut him off. So let's start with the card. The first matchup was Jericho versus Ricky Starks. I think we both agree that Ricky Starks is going to be a huge star. I think he's
He is the future, man.
yeah.
If Darby is the present, Ricky is the future of AEW.
I agree 100%. Um, his spear is crazy. I mean, he
Gorgeous.
basically
Gorgeous.
as soon as he hits the ropes, he starts the jump, and he can spear you from all the way across the room. It's kind of ridiculous. Um,
I, I'm telling you, that spear should be called the Yeet.
yeah, no, that's
I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna do like a little protest on that one. It needs to be called the Yeet from now on.
so.
But anyway, let's get into the match itself.
Yeah, give me your thoughts on it.
Um, it felt sloppy.
Okay.
I saw a few places, and I don't know if it's just because you and me, we've been in the business for ungodly amount of years at this point, but there was just a lot of things that looked overproduced, and because of that, it hurt itself. Like a lot of it wasn't natural. It wasn't called in the ring, and I don't think that's any fault of Jericho because Jericho's been doing this for over 30 years at this point. I think it's because the younger generation, not just Ricky, but the younger generation themselves are so used to calling 98% of the matches in the back that when something happens, they still try to complete the sequence. Let me give you a good example. When Ricky got thrown into the turnbuckle and he did that inside out flip, and he stalled and he kept just trying to push himself over for Jericho to do that the springboard drop kick out the corner. That right there was the first indication of like, oh, this is not going to be called in the ring as much as I would like. And I get calling some of it in back. Trust me, it does make shit a lot easier for a lot of the younger talent. But at the same time, they need to learn that gift of being able to, if something fucks up, immediately think of a plan B. Don't just grab a headlock. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, just
But that's my only gripe. That's my only gripe with the whole match. It just felt overproduced and it just felt sloppy. I mean, the match itself was entertaining as hell. I'm not gonna lie. I loved it all.
no, yeah, I agree. I mean, as far as how the match, uh, it was going pretty well, and the whole gimmick was Jericho Appreciation Society being banned from ringside. But of
Hmm.
course, Sammy Guevara comes out just enough to distract the ref. Uh,
Hmm.
Jericho grabs his little toy bat. Um, with
Where the hell did Action Andrade fucking come from, dude? Like
yeah,
he
I don't
just
know.
spawned out of nowhere.
Yeah, and why can't Chris Jericho have a normal size bat? Like
Oh.
a T-ball bat. Um, anyway, hits him with the bat. Goes for the Judas effect, which Ricky blocks.
That was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
That
It
was
was
a beautiful
it was a
block.
straight up Muay Thai type block. Boom.
Yep.
Um, hits him with the spear. Doesn't want to end it that way. Hooks him up for the Rochambeau. Bam. 1, 2, 3. Hopefully that ends the feud so that Starks can move on to other things. Um, but Starks
Hopefully
with the
Jericho
one,
gets
two,
the.
three.
Hopefully Jericho will get the hint to just take a step back for a little while. You know what I mean? Like go on another Fozzy tour. And I love Jericho. I've loved Jericho since day one. I love Fozzy. I love his wrestling. I love everything about him. I've read all his books. But at this point in time, he feels like he's sucking the life. It's kind of like the Bray Wyatt thing. He's sucking the life out of whatever rivalry he's in at that point, whatever story he's trying to do. And
Yeah,
it's kind of depressing in a way. Because I know Jericho, he could be so much better than what he's doing.
yeah. I think he is comfortable in the AEW system. I think he gets to basically do whatever he wants.
Oh, he's admitted he has full creative.
Yeah,
All his promos, all everything he produces, he approves. So I mean, kudos to that for him to have that power. But it's kind of like my thing with Kenny Omega, and we'll get into that a little bit later. When Kenny is self-produced, he's not as good as when he's produced by somebody better than him.
Yeah. All right, so the next match, the glorified buried alive match, the final
Yep.
burial with Jungle Boy versus Christian Cage. First things first, sleeveless turtlenecks. The fuck?
Okay. To be fair, if anybody can pull it off, it's Christian. I mean,
Yeah,
think of the shit. Think of the shit he's gotten over the years. Kazoos, oversized sunglasses, being a creepy little bastard. Like, if anybody can pull off a ridiculous thing and make it work, it's Christian. So kudos to him for that.
true.
I did. I enjoyed this match probably more than I should
I enjoyed it
because
too. Yeah,
it felt a lot of it was like ad lib on the spot. Like you could tell there's a couple spots that they wanted to do, but a lot of it was Christian and Jack Perry coming together and said, let's just call this as we go. We'll hit our high pieces when we need to, but that was a phenomenal match in my opinion. I enjoyed that more than I enjoyed Jericho and Starks.
yeah. No, I thought that was a real fun match. Couple of things. How many times over this feud have we saw Jack Perry get hit in the nuts? Like, it's happened constantly. And I know that was
Well,
part of the whole hesitation gimmick, but
yeah,
I started to get tired of him getting whacked in the junk. Like, every single time he goes up for the concerto, nut shot.
yeah. Well,
Um,
let's full disclosure. You were full disclosure on being an avid fan of AEW. I'm not that big a fan, so whatever I see is just either like the important shit you send me, or stuff that I think I need to watch to keep with the story. So I didn't really understand the abundance of nut shots until we spoke about it recently. I was like, I need to go back and watch it. I was like, oh my God, this man will never have children. Luke Perry will never have grandkids. I'm so sorry for this man. God rest his soul.
yeah, no, it's
Oh,
crazy. And then I guess um, the story climax is instead of getting hit in the junk, Jack finally grew a pair.
yep.
So he
Beautiful storytelling.
very good storytelling. For those that didn't watch it, Jack finally whacked Christian with the concerto.
I, I, if I went back and watched the replay this morning because I was trying to figure out, you know, did he make contact or not? He made a little contact with that chair from the concerto.
Yeah.
Like, go back and watch. The back of his head got busted open from it.
Mm.
It was brutal.
Yeah. And so he gets him into the casket, slams the door shut, and I guess what makes their casket match different is that the casket just kind of fell into the ground with a puff of
That
smoke.
6 foot that 6 foot drop out of nowhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude,
So
I felt bad for Christian being in the casket.
yeah, no, I really think that this was a good match. I think it was a
Yes,
better
it was.
match than a lot of what was on the card.
Yep. And before we get to the next match, good news, big news. Heel Shit now has its own merchandise coming out. Now, if you want to get it, just go to teespring.com and just search Heel Shit Podcast. We got t-shirts, we got hats, we got stickers. What else do we got for them, man?
Right now, it's heel shit logo shirts. Bad guys do heel shit hoodies, shirts, um, hats. I think there's a beanie on there now. We definitely got hats,
Yep.
um, die cut stickers. Just some really cool stuff. I mean,
Yep.
um,
And this is the same place that you can also get TFK merchandise. I mean, every episode I'm wearing TFK stuff. So, I mean, good quality stuff for a good price. So if you
absolutely.
definitely want to help out the podcast even more, head over to teespring.com, search Hill Shit Podcast, and pick up all your Hill Shit merchandise from there.
Oh, and one other thing.
What's that? Oh,
As I knock my microphone off.
well, that's number one.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. I need to get a wireless one.
Uh,
But I want to introduce our new sponsor,
oh,
Castel
wait, really?
Vodka. Yep. You can't see it on your end because you can't see my picture, but
You
holding
were the
up
John Cena of the podcast.
holding up the bottle of Castel vodka, Kastell vodka. It's got this
Mm-hmm.
beautiful red bottle. It's the smoothest vodka I've ever tasted. Um, I could literally drink this just straight in some ice. It's the best vodka I've ever had. Go over to Instagram at Castel Vodka. Answer all your questions. Kastell Vodka on Instagram, on Facebook, everywhere. Go get this vodka. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good
Um,
stuff. Good stuff is happening.
Absolutely. So my the notes that I took on this next match for the trios championship. First thing I
Mm-hmm.
wrote, fun. I thought
Yes,
this was a fun match.
it
Um,
was. It was a smooth match. Very
yeah,
smooth.
very. There's this really cool part that I really enjoyed where Malachi Black and Kenny Omega were trading uh, jumping knees back and forth. They're just murdering
Mm-hmm.
each other with these jumping knees. And
Yes,
it comes as no surprise that Malachi Black, in my opinion, is the best striker in pro wrestling.
without a
Nobody,
doubt.
yeah,
Without a
without a
doubt.
doubt, and it's no wonder. I mean, he was a Dutch professional kickboxer, and as far as
Yep.
kickboxing goes, the Dutch are some of the best on the planet. So if you're a professional kickboxer out of uh, out of the Dutch system, you're a serious fighter. And his spinning back kick
God bless you for it.
is the best kick in wrestling.
Yep.
It's pinpoint accurate. It's I don't think I've ever seen him miss. Like when he wants to hit that, I don't know what they call it in AEW. They used to call it the Black Mass.
I
In
think they
W,
still do call it Black Mass.
do they?
I think. Yeah, I think so.
But that kick is deadly. Um,
Yes.
Another cool
Now,
thing is Omega went for the V trigger knee. Malachi stepped out of the way, and Julia Hart took that straight on. Like she
she
was,
took it like a champ.
yeah,
Like a champ.
absolutely. I mean, has anyone had a bigger transformation for the good than Julia Hart? From her cheerleader gimmick to now running the House of Black, like her character development and that character change has been amazing.
Are we speaking strictly AEW or just pro wrestling in general?
I mean, I would say it rivals pretty much. It's in the conversation pretty much industry wide.
Okay, I'll give that. I'll give that top three, but definitely AEW. Um, Granted, like in the beginning, and I've given my expressed concerns about it. There was just too many hands in the pot when AEW first started, so everybody was trying to have creative and shit. And since Tony took over, I'll give Tony this. Ever since Tony took over, he's got this thing on a singular direction that he wants to go, and moving Julia from the Varsity Blondes to the House of Black was a beautiful move, and she is thriving in that now. It's beautiful storytelling. Of
Hmm.
course, anything with Malachi is beautiful, in
Yeah.
my opinion. I'm I'm not a mark for Malachi, but I respect everything he's done since leaving WWE till now. Like, man has nothing but respect for me. But I have a gripe for this match. I have
Okay.
one little gripe. Malachi got over. Kenny got over. The Young Bucks got over. Brody got over like a monster. Where was Buddy Matthews? He just seemed like filler in this match.
Yeah.
Yes, he had a couple little spots here and there, but looking back at this match, nobody's going to go, look what Buddy Matthews did in this match. No, they're going to be like, look what the fuck Brody King did. This motherfucker was a monster.
Can I just
Look
point
what
out
look what Malachi and Omega did. Yeah, go ahead.
point out Brody King's face paint? That was crazy. All right, no,
Dude, I'm loving it.
I don't know how Brody King is not world champion in the next year. Like, he is an absolute monster. He's scary as shit. Look, I'm a big dude. I'm a big dude. He's at least
He's
my
bigger than you.
size.
Oh, he's bigger than you. I've seen Brody King in person.
Yeah, no, I'm six
The man's every
four.
bit of 6'6". He's like
Yeah,
every bit of 6'6",
every bit of
375.
six. Um, and he moves like a cat. Like,
Oh my.
how do you prepare for Brody King? Like, he is an absolute beast. It's like wrestling a water buffalo. Like, he is
It's
just,
it's kind of like wrestling Taker in the '90s, if you think about it.
yeah. He's
Nobody has his card.
um let's see, there was a really cool spot, well, a series of spots, not at the finish, but
What in a Young Bucks match? There's spots.
yeah,
Oh
shocking.
my god.
But there was a really cool series where everybody was hitting their finisher, both sides. The only finisher that didn't get hit, obviously, was the One Winged Angel. But there was that little series where Malachi Black hit the Black Mass, and then their tag team finisher is spectacular. That
Yes,
they
that
call it the
Stunner driver.
Dante's
Oh,
Inferno, but they hook the vertical suplex, and then they throw the opponent to Brody King
Brody.
for the pile driver. He's absolutely devastating finisher.
It is.
And then
Um,
towards the end, it looked like the Elite were gonna win it. They hit their BTE trigger, the three knees to the one
yeah,
opponent. It got
I
broken
thought it
up.
was over.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It got broken up, and then we then saw once again the Black Mass into the Dante's Inferno. House of Black wins, new trios champion, and I think the right call, absolutely the right call.
I agree there. I agree with the young Bucks and Omega being having their position in AEW being the EVPs. It's kind of like being the booker, being the promoter on your independent shows. They never need a title. Ever does the promoter or booker ever need a title because that looks power hungry. And you know me, I'm guilty of this as well. And I've learned my lesson over the years from it as well. Um, you need to be able to think of your other talent first. And I get to a point why they put the trios title on the elite being the first champions or whatever. But at the same time, was it necessary? I mean, you got the Lucha Brothers and Pac of Death Triangle. You got Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends. You have the House of Black. Why couldn't one of them three trios or bring in a trio from ROH? I mean, they have the six man tag championships as well with Dalton Castle and the boys. Bring in them. You have talent to put these belts over and make them something. I'm not saying that the elite hurt them or hinder them, but I don't think it did anything to help grow them the way House of Black is going to with their, I hope, long and great title run.
No, I agree. I truly believe that they created those trios titles for the elites, for the elite. I think that was really the purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
you can't, when you got Kenny Omega and you've got the Young Bucks, regardless of their position in the company, they're going to hold titles, because they're fucking Kenny
Unfortunately.
Omega and the Young Bucks. You know,
Well, I think that just goes back to the power that they have within the company themselves. Like, put them in WWE, like hypothetical, put them in WWE. They may put the tag straps on the Bucks, but do you think they would put the WWE title on Kenny Omega walking in the fucking door? Or do you
I,
think they'd make him like work for that shit?
Um,
Think about that.
I don't think Kenny Omega wins the WWE Championship, but I think it's because of anybody in the world, he's the antithesis of the WWE style. He's, he's to me, he's one of the greatest wrestlers in the world, but he's not a WWE style wrestler. I think he's
No.
perfectly suited for everything he's done for the Indies, for AEW, which let's face it, is built with indie stars. That's was their whole that was their whole gimmick was is the whole being an alternative, and I think wrestling fans really like indie wrestling. I know that there was a section in this match where I could hear you say your catchphrase uh, for Young Bucks matches. And do you want to tell our audience what you call Young Bucks matches?
Super indie matches. And you're right. You're
That
right.
that that's
I was
not
sit-
that's
I
not what
was
it
I was
is.
sitting here watching it.
That's not what it is, Draven.
Nah,
All right, what is it? Super indie bullshit. That's what it
super
is.
indie bullshit.
Super
I was
indie
trying to be
bullshit.
nice. It's still early. God forbid, I'm still working on my caffeine intake. But I mean, you're not wrong. I was sitting there going, "This is too much." And a lot of time, I mean, granted, pay-per-view matches, you always put more into that than you do on TV. But even then, less is more. You don't always have to go, no pun intended, all out on every pay-per-view. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I know AEW is like the super indie style versus what would you say my style is like? It's not quite old school. It's not quite modern. It's like a little mixture of the two, but it's storytelling.
Right.
It's KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That's the way I was taught. That's the way that I wholeheartedly agree with how the business should be. It's kind of like when you go back to like 2015, 16, 17, maybe even 18, and you're watching NXT on the network, okay? And then they have those once a quarter takeovers. Do do something close to that. Like I know NXT is like WWE style when it comes to producing and wrestling and stuff like that. But the way they told the story from NXT 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks out, and then hit that NXT takeover, and then takeover felt so much more special when you were watching these matches. And yes, it was a lot of indie shit, but the indie shit meant something when it was on takeover. They didn't do it every week on NXT, and that's the problem I have with AEW in general. Is and bash me in the comments. I don't care. I welcome it. Your booze please me. When when you're doing the same shit on AEW Dynamite or Rampage or Dark Elevation or whatever other show they do, and then you go to a pay-per-view and you do essentially the same shit, it doesn't feel special. And then that's when you got to do the finish, the finish, the finish, the finish, the finish, the finish spot. That's when you got to do 1,000 false finishes. Why Why in God's name did anybody kick out Dante's Inferno the first time it was hit as a triple move? Why did they do two? It's stuff like that that irks me, and why I don't watch a lot of AEW. I just pick and choose what I want to watch, and I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this. It's like I said earlier this morning, um, especially with Omega and the Young Bucks. Go back, go back and watch Kenny Omega, New Japan. I want to say 2016, 2017, and maybe even in 2018 with the Okada matches. Go watch him perform there. Then come watch some AEW stuff, the stuff that he produced himself. It is night and day. when he is produced by somebody that gives him direction, he is 1,000 times better than when he's at the helm and he has the will, he has say so, whatever he can do. Kind of the same with the Young Bucks. Now, granted, I've never ever been a fan of the Young Bucks, and it's nothing against their gimmick or their talent. I think they're phenomenal in the name of tag team wrestling. They're a top 10, always will be. But there's just something about them that irks me, and it's hard to put a finger on. We might have to do an episode on just the Young Bucks. That way I can properly, pull some notes together and try to get my point across. But as far as the match itself, the six-man tag for the trios, phenomenal match. It kept my attention the entire time. Yes, you heard in your head me saying that's super indie bullshit, but at the end of the day, it got the point across. Now, where do they go from here? Do they do the rematch and then the Elite get them? Do the Elite just step back and let the House of Black take over the trio section and let them build that brand up more? It's going to be interesting to see in the next few weeks.
My prediction is the House of Black are going to keep it for a while. I don't think the Bucks and Omega go away immediately. I think, obviously, they always tout the rematch, and I think it solidifies House of Black more when they win it and when they win the rematch. But I do think they're going to hold the titles for a good long while. And
Yes.
who is the next likely challenger? You can say Death Triangle, but I don't know. There's something missing to me about Death Triangle, and I don't know what it is. But it certainly feels like.
Who knows? They might
Who
just
knows?
pull a whole new three-man team in and just start building them up.
I think I'd like to
I mean, it could be
see.
one of those things.
I'd like to see Sting and Darby Allin pull a third person and put up. I think Sting needs a title run before his career completely ends, and I think the fact that he can be one of a trio will make it
Mm-hmm.
still look believable.
I
So
agree.
that's
But
kind of
who
where I
would you
hope.
put with them two?
Hmm?
But who would you put with if you booked it? Who would you put with Sting and Darby?
I mean, they had run with a few people, um, back when the trios titles were kind of a glimmer, and I was like, okay, that trio will work well. I can't remember exactly who it was, unfortunately, and I deserve to get roasted for
But that
that.
tells you
But
that tells you no, that just goes to show you that those wouldn't work. The
hmm
only thing that comes to mind when it comes to them working trios is Punk, because I kind of have the three pack with the face paint and stuff like that, and it's awesome.
right,
But even even if Punk comes back, you don't put Punk in the trios thing. You
no,
put him straight with the fucking elite. Let him do that fucking storyline there, because that is money. That is bukus of money, and if you put FTR into it, it's just storytelling. But if it was me, I would put Mark Briscoe with him.
mm,
Think about that. What is Mark doing right now? He's the one man tag team champions,
right,
which at some point they're going to have to either make Mark get a tag team partner or they're going to have to strip him, which is going to be a sad day.
hmm
But they're going to strip Mark of the tag team titles for them to move forward with Ring of Honor since it's back on a the Honor Club.
hmm
So I would put Mark there. That'd give him something to do on AEW television. And God willing, if they want to build him up as this mega star, make him go for the pure title, make him go for the Ring of Honor title. That will bring more legitimacy to that trios.
yeah,
Or God forbid, take Sting, Darby, and Mark. and make them win the six-man tag team championships in Ring of Honor, challenge House of Black for the Trios championship, and unify those titles.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
Just a thought.
Yeah, I don't hate that. All right, so moving on in my notes, this is where JR leaves. He left right after this trios match. One thing that I did like about this pay-per-view was they didn't try to do any filler. Like, it was literally match.
Yep.
So the next one was the women's championship. Jamie Hayter, Saraya, and Ruby Soho. And I think Jamie Hayter is one of the best female wrestlers on the planet. I think that the announce team hit the nail on the head when they said Jamie Hayter is AEW. It's AEW's champion because the fans made her the champion. I don't think that she was ever. She was going to be the enforcer. She was going to be the protector. The fans made her AEW champion, and I think she's going to be the AEW champion for quite some time. I think her power is phenomenal. Her athleticism. She's technically sound. I think she's top tier women's wrestler right now.
I can't disagree with anything you said. And going back to me just picking, high spots and stuff for me to watch personally. Anytime Jamie Hayter is on television, I watch. She has my attention because it was that natural transition. Kind of like when the fans take a heel, kind of like Seth Rollins last year, and they just naturally turn him babyface. It's kind of like that thing. It was beautiful to watch. I have nothing bad to say about this match. I think everything was done methodically. I think everything was thought through, and the end there with the heel turn was I didn't expect it. I expected Ruby just to walk away, but they got me. They swerved me, and I can appreciate that. And I think no, I don't think I know today, March 6th, 2023. Quote me for time and day. AEW has the best women's wrestling on the planet. And, it was kind of shaky there for a little bit because they had the NXT girls doing their thing, and then they had Becky and the Four Horsemen do their thing. But since they've grown their talent, this goes back to Britt Baker, taking it from it's done nothing but excel. They've made that division mean something more than just women in scandalous attire rubbing on each other. They've made that division mean something, and I can appreciate that more than a lot of people think about. Because when us coming up, for example, we had the bra and panty shit. We had Sable with her titties out every week. Like, we didn't even get like a first glimpse of what women's wrestling could be until 2003 when Lita and Trish main evented Raw for the women's title, which, by the way, still top 5 women's match of all time.
Agreed.
Don't ever argue with me. I will fight you. I will fight you.
No,
we will go out that road. I will fight anybody that disagrees with me. But the fact that they've made women's wrestling mean something, and that's where women want to go and compete, that has nothing but respect for me. I have nothing bad to say about this match. Saraya coming back from her neck injury, God bless her for it. She's an inspiration to us all. You know what I mean about that. We'll talk about that at a later date. But I love the match. There's nothing I can say bad about it.
Yeah, no, just going through the match, there's this really funny spot where Jamie Hayter pinned Saraya, and Tony Storm jumped up on the ring apron to distract the ref and break up that pin. And then Saraya hit what she used to call the Rampage, the Cradle DDT, and then And
that did look wicked.
and then when she went for the pin, Britt Baker jumped up on the apron and distracted the ref, kind of a tit for tat, because Britt
Yep.
is the quintessential AEW heel. So, if you're gonna play
Yep.
heel shit, even though I'm playing the good girl now because we're on AEW side, if you can pull heel shit, I can definitely pull heel shit. So,
Yep.
I thought that was an awesome little tit for tat. Um,
No
you know,
pun intended.
yeah. Obviously, the match finished. Hayter pinned Ruby Soho. Um, there was something I was slightly
And
confused
immediately got
about.
jumped on.
Say again?
And immediately, I was just going to say, immediately got jumped on like she had no time to celebrate her victory.
Yeah, no, not at all. There was one part that I was kind of confused about. Probably the last 15 seconds of the match before the pin, Saraya was just kind of
Mm-hmm.
laying in the corner. Like I was slightly concerned about, if she was injured or not. Obviously she wasn't, but if you go back and look
Yeah.
during the finish, Saraya was just kind of laying in the corner with Tony Storm over there, and
Mm-hmm.
and obviously I wouldn't normally be concerned, but she's had injury problems, and that's just how it's going
Yes.
to be. Then following the match, there was a situation to where the Britt and Jamie were fighting off and attacking Saraya and Tony Storm, and Ruby Soho went in. She broke it up. She looked at Saraya and was like, "This is our house, bitches," and then immediately turned
Mm-hmm.
around, attacked Britt and Jamie. So that invasion faction has grown a little bit stronger. It's how this kind of angle works. I anticipate
Mm-hmm.
Hikaru Shida joining the AEW group as kind of like how the storyline is going to build. But this is how these
Mm-hmm.
things go. The homegrowns get a win, and the invasion adds another member. It gets stronger, and they always seem to get the last laugh because they keep getting stronger. So they're going to have to add somebody to the AEW originals. I think Shida is the most likely suspect.
Agreed. That or Jade Cargill.
Wow. Hmm.
Then think about that.
No, I didn't think about
Think
that
about
at all.
she's the most dominant woman in AEW. And yes, I know she's not AEW Women's Champion. She's the TBS champion right now. But who has beat her? Nobody's beaten her significantly. Yes, they have a little thing with the Athena or whatever they call her now,
Mm.
Ember Moon. I'll call her Ember because that's how I know her. But other than Ember Moon being a legitimate threat to Jade Cargill, nobody has touched Jade. She has this aura around her, and she's like the epitome of what's homegrown talent. Like this is her first ever promotion, is AEW, and she's come so far from that debut with Shaq in 2019.
Hmm.
It's phenomenal to see how she's grown so far.
It'll
That's what
be
I would.
it'll
You
be
want
interesting to
to do like a
see.
faction versus faction thing? Go ahead.
It'll be interesting to see because eventually they're going to come to the Jade Cargill versus Jamie Hayter match, and it'll be interesting to see what they
Mhm.
do there. Um, because I don't think.
But it's gonna be the journey there. That's gonna be the interesting part.
Yeah, that's true. All right, moving on to Texas Death. A couple of things in this match.
Marty.
A couple of
This
pro.
match was sponsored by the Red Cross. You can't tell me any differently. The Red Cross sponsored this match.
Yeah, no, it was barbaric. Um, the first crazy thing was Mox gets Hangman in a triangle choke, starts going at him with the fork. Fork, 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 scraping it across his forehead, back and forth, stab, stab, stab. Then something I've never seen before. They had this chair wrapped in barbed wire, and it wasn't just a little bit of barbed wire. It was barbed wire with a little bit of chair in it. All right, so
You've never seen a chair wrapped in barbed wire?
not that wrapped in barbed wire.
Oh, well, I got a few matches for you. I'll send to you.
Okay.
Yeah. But continue.
But one thing I've never seen before, and the chair wasn't what I'd never seen before, but the Moxley had Hangman in a single leg crab on top of that chair, and it was something about that was just gnarly as shit to me. There was a spot where Hangman went to spear Moxley into that chair. Moxley dodged it, threw Hangman headfirst into the chair, and part of Hangman stayed on the chair for the rest of the night. Like, there was just a clump of Hangman on the chair all night long. I have here in my notes too far question mark. There were visibly some disgusted people in the crowd. Whether that's good or not, I don't know. I even felt a little bit squeamish on a couple of these things. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm a big bad guy heel, but the blood and stuff is not really in my wheelhouse. I think, to me, I'm gonna admit it, and I've admitted it for a while. Mox is my favorite wrestler right now. He's fucking phenomenal. I think he's been the best wrestler in the world for the past 2 or 3 years. But it's getting a little bit far with the blood shit.
Oh, we're on the same page now? Really?
I told you that there are some problems with this
I'm shocked to
pay-per-view.
hear you say that.
Yeah, I had some problems with this pay-per-view.
Let's go back. Let me get my part out with the match. I think it was unnecessary. I think Moxley brought the death match stipulation in to Tony Khan. He's like, oh yeah, we'll sell that on pay-per-view, not thinking of the repercussions, like you said, with some of the fans that were in the stands being disgusted. For example, like later on the night, that little, what was it? He couldn't be no more than 6 or 7, sitting in the front row with his mama. That boy is now scarred for life because he really looked like a Picasso painting from the Fort Spikes. It, I get there is a time and place for stipulation matches such as this. And even when those matches happen, you can use your imagination to be innovative. But to me, it was too much. To me, I lost interest in it. It was borderline distasteful to me because you know me, you know that I've had death matches. I know what they can do to you. My back is just riddled with scars from light switches and barbed wires and shit from me being stupid over the years, and that's just my mindset now. Is death matches are not necessary to push a story. To me, that was just Moxley's playground for him to have fun and get a nice payday. The blood was the blood was needed for the death match, but it was too much blood. And when it comes to Moxley, we've had conversations about this. Anytime I see Moxley, he's already bleeding. Like, it's not special anymore when Moxley bleeds. It was special when Heyman started bleeding, and he was getting that sympathy. But Moxley bleeding is just like a given, like a headlock is in a wrestling match. And I did not like this match at all. I'm sorry. It was too much for me, and I know there's going to be a lot of people saying, "Oh, he's just set in his old ways." It's not me being set in my old ways. It's me from experience knowing the kind of torture that you put your body through, and I just can't agree with somebody doing that and expect them to be okay. It's too much for me,
I
and
think
I'm not going to have a damn word about that fucking match.
I think Moxley's definitely going to take a little bit of a break. I think he definitely deserves it. I think this was designed to be brutal enough to where it's reasonable for him to take some time off. I think he needed to take time off back before the brawl out, and because of what happened with the fight, he stuck around to carry that title, which I think he did beautifully. All of his title runs, I think, have been dominant. Um, but this just didn't hit it for me. I mean, a couple other spots. There's a spot where Moxley found bricks under the ring, and
Oh
he
my God.
he put one brick down, and then Hangman's hand, and then another brick, and stomped the shit out of it. Um,
Oh, that was shoot. That was for shoot. There was no way you could work around that.
oh no, no. Um,
And the fucking curb stomp into the bricks.
yeah,
Legitimately, a grown ass man, any grown ass man. If and this is a psychology thing. If you see a man get a curb stomp, let alone a curb stomp into the bricks, do you think that man's getting up for a 10 count? Do you think that man's going to be getting up for the next 2 days?
all right,
No, it made no sense. And in a way, I get, Mox just kind of adopted the move to like as an homage to Seth. I've seen a few of his matches where he does it, and he does it pretty well. But he buried the curve stomp last night. It was you just basically told me that that curve stomp was fake as hell because the man got up before a 10 count after having his head shoved directly in the bricks by his foot. It's just
yeah, no, it was rough. The
it's
match,
I'm disgusted by it.
the match finally ends with there's a big fucking chain. You know, it reminded me almost of a nautical
Oh my,
chain. It was so big.
yeah.
Not like a barge chain, obviously, but definitely a
Hmm.
thick chain, and it got wrapped around Mox's neck. He got thrown over the top rope, literally hanging by his neck with the chain. He tapped out frantically. So you know that was supposed to be like a serious hanging, and Hangman wins. Now I want to kind of point out the differences in the blood between the two. Like Moxley is starting to become like Ric Flair in the sense that you cut him a little bit and he's gonna bleed the entire fucking match. But if you notice with Hangman, even after the forks, scrape, he bled, but it was almost like he healed during the match because he was completely, he stopped bleeding completely, and I think it's gotten to the point where Mox's scar tissue has just gotten out of control. I mean, his forehead's gonna look like Dusty Rhodes before he's done.
It's gonna look like I'm doing the butcher. Is what
yeah,
it's gonna look like.
yeah.
And another thing, 2 words, baby aspirin. Excuse me. Moxley's high up on that shit for every match, but you know as well as I do, aspirin thins out your blood,
No, yeah.
and the more you bleed, the more of a payday he thinks he's gonna get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
All right, so let's
I-
move
if
on
if
to.
this if th-
Okay.
hold on.
Hmm?
Let me get this one last thing out. If this was done, if this match was done the same way, and if you take out the weapons and to an extent tone down the blood, and if it was just mano a mano, even if you put it in like a cage or something, I believe this match would have been match of the night. But because of how far they took it and how much they pushed the envelope. It was too much. Tony Khan really needs to sit down and think about these things because he. This is a company that children watch, and we all know how much people are fucking snowflakes nowadays with their children watching stuff. Let's go back to the Raw is XXX tweet that we talked about a few weeks ago. Do you seriously think they're going to allow their children to watch an AEW pay-per-view after seeing this, or watch anything that John Moxley's on for the next 3 or 4 weeks, at least if he's on TV? Tony's not seeing it from that standpoint. He's seeing it from a standpoint of, and I hate to say it, as a fan from the '90s. Yeah, let's watch that shit. That's ECW shit. Awesome. And as much as I bash about how people are snowflakes today, Tony's got to see it from that perspective. It was too much for last night, especially when I realized there was a lot of little, and I'm talking like my godson's age, 4, 5, 6 years old, children watching that, and now have to almost in a way relive that, and we don't know the kind of shit that's gonna come from that. Maybe it was fake blood, la la pepper, but it's if it was me watching that, knowing the business the way I know the business, I would have been pissed. I would have gave some grievances to TK personally as a parent to tone it down just a hair. Like I said, take out all the weapons, remove a little bit of the blood, and just let them beat the shit out of each other like men fucking do.
Yeah.
This turned into basically like a prison yard fight, and it was just disgusting to me.
Yeah, there's gonna be
And
some.
you know me, it takes a lot for me to be disgusted by something, and this disgusted me.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see it. And this is just one of a couple of missteps that I think they made last night. Um, I don't know. If John isn't off TV for a good 2 or 3 months, this was just a complete waste. I think that it might have been brutal enough to where they're like, okay, he needs a vacation. This was a good way to put him on that path to vacation. But
Yeah,
you're right. It was rough to watch, and especially if you're sitting there in the stands with one of your children next to you. What do you tell them? You know.
yeah.
All right. So on to the most difficult spot on the show. You've got Wardlow versus Joe following a complete emotional adrenaline dump by the crowd. The crowd was absolutely emotionally exhausted at this point after this match. I think
They were almost dead.
Yeah, I think a death match in the middle of the card is just bad planning. I mean, you shouldn't have. To me, you shouldn't have had the death match on the same pay-per-view as you had the Iron Man match, because it becomes a war of attrition almost. It's like, can you stay up this, and the crowd for a good chunk of this match with Joe was completely silent. They just and Wardlow is one of those homegrown guys who is over. All right, Wardlow is over, and the fact that that match was quiet for 75% of it, I don't know. I enjoyed the match,
and it's no fault. It's no fault of Joe or Wardlow. That was a phenomenal match. It told a beautiful story.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, putting if you do a death match, especially here in the United States, it has to be made. It can't be at the beginning. It can't be at the end. Now, if you had to book this show with both those matches, you would have, me personally, I would put the Iron Man first,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd put the death match last,
Yeah.
just to make it, make sense. But, title has to go on last, all that good stuff. But this match, beautiful. I didn't see anything really wrong. I know Wardlow's still kind of green, and there's a couple little foul up because he's green, but he's in there with my opinion currently top 10 best workers going right now. Samoa Joe,
Mm-hmm.
he can make a broomstick look like a 5-star match if he wanted to. He knows when to speed up. He knows when to slow down. He knows when to take something. He knows when to just walk away. And I don't think Wardlow was in any better hands than he was last night with Joe.
No, I completely agree. I think Joe is, not only is he still believable as an absolute wrecking ball, he is at the point where he's great at making his opponent. Like that whole series.
He's a cardio machine.
Oh God.
Like that man's cardio I say it's on par with Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson, excuse me.
Yeah, no,
And
it's
we'll
crazy
we'll,
for
we'll
being.
talk about his cardio later on the show, but Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
And the
no,
man sweats like you.
yeah, but
Good night.
it's impressive to watch. So, um, I want to point out Wardlow's just athleticism, though. I mean, when he was thrown into the corner, he scaled it and did the whisper in the wind basically
Yep.
on Joe.
That
Um,
that that popped me. That popped me. Really, really, really stuck on me. The wife did not enjoy me going, oh shit, real quick.
yeah, no, it was
And
cool.
to me, Wardlow is what Brian Cage should have been. You know what I mean?
The problem with
Like,
I'm gonna catch hell for saying
we
this, but it's fine. But Brian Cage is where charisma goes to die.
well, I
Brian,
mean, he's Mr. Get my shit in. He only cares about getting his own stuff in. As long as he looks good, he don't give a fuck about the match.
but
So
he's
I agree with you there.
yeah.
But
Is he?
the
Yeah.
way Wardlow is now is the way Brian Cage's mindset should have been.
Mm,
And Brian Cage would be so much bigger than he is now. Not physically, because I don't think his body can handle that anymore. But from a crowd standpoint, he could be just as over as Wardlow. He had the same mindset Wardlow is about wanting to learn shit and want to give back instead of just getting your own shit in.
yeah.
And that was like my big note right there. Wardlow is what Brian Cage should have been. And
No,
Brian Cage, phenomenal athlete,
oh yeah.
but
Yeah.
his attitude is just the worst. And like, it's like we know a couple guys in the business that have that attitude. Brian Cage makes them look nice, and it's just that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
But back to this match. Well, how did you feel about Wardlow beating Joe with Joe's arm move? You think that was the right call?
I do because Joe tried to end the match with Wardlow's finisher. He taunted the symphony, the Powerbomb Symphony. It was again one of those tit for tat things that I appreciate. Um,
I agree. I agree with you there.
I don't necessarily think his technique was that good, but um,
No, no, especially when he grabbed the rear naked choke and just fell completely backwards. I'm surprised he didn't crack a rib from Joe landing on him the way he did.
mm,
Like he sandbagged him.
yeah, yeah.
But
So
all
obviously
in all,
Wardlow won with the Coquina Clutch. New TNT champion. No rest for the weary, because on Wednesday he's got Will fucking Hobbs. who I can't see
The oversized
them.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
I can't see them having Wardlow win it just to lose it 3 days later. But
No, it's in my opinion that match is going to end with a dirty finish, either a DQ or a count out, and it's going to continue on.
yeah,
But
I
I get
think,
they're trying to build Dynamite up for ratings, so it makes sense from that standpoint.
and I think Hobbs
But
will
if
eventually win the TNT title. I think he deserves it. I think he.
he just needs to be seasoned up a little bit more, in my opinion. He's still green as hell,
Oh yeah, no,
green as hell,
he's definitely green, but
but he
he's
has all
made
the potential in the
vast
world.
improvements. His physique has made ridiculous improvements.
Yes.
Um, I think he's
Um,
definitely a star in the making. I just don't think it's going to be Wednesday. So,
no, I will say within the next year, he'll have a title. He'll have that push. It's still too soon.
yeah, yeah. All right,
Like
then we moved
if they
on.
build it right, if they build that right, Hobbs could get over at, let's say, All Out. If they build it properly and have Wardlow keep the title, turn one of them heel, I could see Hobbs winning it at All Out this year.
Yeah, I think so too. Um, all right, so then we had a four-way match for the tag team titles, and I gotta say, I love Orange Cassidy's walkout music. There's no music that fits their character better than Orange Cassidy. Um, and
It's a
it's been
lot
that,
better than what it was. I will say that.
huh?
I said it's a lot better than what it was. I will say that.
Yeah. Um, so obviously it was Orange Cassidy and Danhausen versus the Acclaimed versus Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal versus the Guns, who are the
Mhm.
tag champions. Um,
Ass boys.
the
Ass
Ass
boys.
Boys. Um, I guess the absurdity of some of the things were what made this match good. The whole Satnam Singh getting in the ring and then taking finishers from everybody and getting chucked out. I thought that was hilarious. Um, I thought when they did the middle rope scissor to Sanjay Dutt when Taz said Taz said Yambag Johnson right there. I pop for that shit. I sometimes Taz comes out with some shit and it's just hilarious to me. So you
I
get
mean, he's a
the
phenomenal announcer.
oh yeah, absolutely. Um, and then the Guns pinned Danhausen after their finisher, which was the right call because he was literally the only person in the match who could get pinned that it doesn't fucking matter at all to his career, his push.
Yep.
Um, I don't think
Yep.
you can give Orange Cassidy a loss. He's been on the longest winning streak of anybody in the company. I'm a huge Orange Cassidy fan. I love him. So, what did you think of the match and how it went down?
The match itself, in my notes, I wrote down two words, and it's circle. Scrambled eggs. There was too many moving parts for this match to keep me engaged longer than 3 or 4 seconds at a time. The spot that you referred to with the big bastard that took all the finishes, I can't remember his name to save my life ever. That would have meant more if I didn't see that a couple matches earlier in the trios match. That felt a little watered down to me. Like, oh, if they did it here, let's do it here to get him out. Now, it made sense because you get the 7 foot giant taking all these finishes. That's not the only way you're going to get him taken out. But it felt watered down there. Now, the false finish with Who the hell did Jared him? This is one of the times I started straying away. But Jared hit the stroke on one of the opponents, and it was so close to three that he thought that he had it.
Mm-hmm.
That was beautiful. Um, and I agree with you. Danhausen was the only one in that match that could take the pinfall and it wouldn't hurt nobody. Danhausen is over as fuck. And he's done really nothing other than just showing up to get over like that. Um, but I gotta ask, and I legitimately don't know, so I'm hoping you could tell me since you watch AEW every week. Do the Guns have a Shawn Michaels fetish or some shit? Or did the Guns go and like raid Michaels' wardrobe from the early '90s and just steal his fucking gimmicks? Like, it
There's nothing about the
if you're one,
Guns that appeals to me. Nothing.
well, I think they have all the potential in the world if they just break out and be their own thing. But it feels like Rockers 2.0 in a way because of how they emulate Shawn. Like, I went and got me something to drink and I came back and they were doing their entrance. And, one of them had the assless chaps on and then the other one had the top piece on and they both had old Shawn Michaels gear on essentially. And I get homaging, but I've seen the same thing every time I watch the Guns. It's like, can you explain this to me? Like, do they have an HBK fetish? Do they want to be in Playgirl? Like, dude, talk to me.
I don't know. They're both very odd. They're they're it's I don't know. I don't
But
I
from
don't
Mama
see it.
Rose,
I don't see the appeal of those guys. Um, I think
okay,
if they
so
weren't Billy
if you
Gunn's kids,
if
they
you had
wouldn't be there.
uh, if you had said that a year ago, I'd agree with you. But they've kind of made some leaps and bounds on their own with how they've grown. Now, since you said that you don't see the thing in the Guns, if you had to choose one of those other three teams, who would you have gone with to win the titles?
The Acclaimed for sure.
Why?
I think they had a good run with the titles already. I think they're over as fuck. I think they're really talented despite how silly they are. I think they connect with the audience as a babyface team pretty much better than anybody. Um, so they're who I would if I was booking it. Well, if I'm booking that match, I don't know that it changes how I would have booked that match because immediately following, the real tag team champions came out. FTR made their return, and
Spoiler alert.
yeah, this is a fucking recap. They're all spoilers, all right. Um, FTR comes out.
Look. Some people don't watch the pay-per-view. Some people listen to the podcast, then go watch pay-per-views, or they don't have the ability to watch pay-per-views like we did in the '90s.
No, that's awesome. But we're here telling people what happened on the show, so I'm not concerned too much
Yeah.
about spoilers.
Again,
Um,
spoilers.
so
Um,
FTR comes out. The pop was crazy. Uh, I
yes,
think there's no
it
doubt
made me
that
so
they're
happy.
going to win the championships back from the Guns. One thing that I did find very interesting is they hit the big rig, but Excalibur
And they
called
called
it
it
the
the
Shattered
fucking
Machine.
Shatter Machine.
That
I'm hoping. I'm hoping they got the rights to Shatter Machine. I really do.
I
Because
can't.
I was listening to the Dax's podcast a couple weeks back, and he got so emotional when Edge and Beth did it at Elimination Chamber, and the fact that they called it Shatter Machine, he just felt overjoyed that it was something that he named that they're still recognizing as such. I just hope they came to some sort of agreement with the trademark of Shatter Machine.
Well, they had to have because it would have been a violation last night. Um, Either that's not trademarked or whatnot. But that was surprising as shit. I was really happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't be completely shocked if, because I don't think Edge's deal is much longer with WWE. I wouldn't be shocked
No,
if,
I believe. Go ahead.
I mean, is it too far fetched for me to think that when Edge is done there, he comes to AEW because they're such close friends? They obviously, did a lot of paying homage to them in their last match against Rhea and Finn. I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but I don't think you can read too much into anything in wrestling. Do you see that becoming anything?
I think you are. I, I think you are reading just a little bit too much into it. I've heard Edge go on record and saying when his contract is up, I think it's either end of this year or like right at Mania next year. So they might get the extension for a Mania match. But he said he's done. He's he just wants to spend time with his kids and his family now. He was able to come back and do what he loved and wants to end it on his terms. And he's gone on record saying the next show in Montreal will be his last show. Now, does that mean he won't pop up at AEW for like a guest appearance or something like a one off? Maybe, but Edge is so devoted to the brand of WWE that I can't see him doing it. It's kind of like if like Randy's contract went up, Randy Orton's. You know Randy's not going to pop up in AEW. It's like Cena. Cena's not going to pop up in AEW.
Right.
Yeah, and I think Edge fits in that little group of people. No matter what is offered, loyalty means just that much more than money. So I think you are just reading a little bit into it, but it was still a good theory.
I'm okay to be
If
wrong
it
on
was me
this.
booking this match, yeah. Well, I mean, this is just my opinion versus your opinion. There's no right or wrong answer. But getting back to the match, since you would have booked the acclaim, let me ask you this: do you think the stuff with the guns and the acclaim's over with? Do you think that was the final blow off?
I'm not sure. And I only say that because I don't think you can end a long term feud in a fatal four way. I think there's got to be
Mm-hmm.
the one on one blowout, and as long as Billy is with the acclaimed, I don't think that dynamic ever goes away. I think there's always going to be
Okay.
that rivalry. Um, do they
Okay.
carry it to
So let me.
to another series of matches? I don't know that, but I don't think it's over.
Okay. So let me ask you this. I'm writing something down real quick. Um, do you think that feud needs the titles anymore to make either team relevant as a threat?
No, especially since they've been champions already. I think FTR wins the belts. I think they keep them for a while. I think it might this
Well,
Ass Boys versus Acclaim
well, yeah.
thing, maybe an ancillary feud, but
Well, yeah. I mean, that feud's gonna be going on for a while. But what I'm saying is, FTR needs a team, a heel team, a good heel team, to get the belts off of. They're coming back like white hot baby faces. Why not? And this is just me thinking of one person in this group rather than both of them. Why not let Jarrett and Lethal win the tag belts? Because Jarrett doesn't need it, but Lethal needs something. He needs a notch in his belt because he has not really done anything of relevancy since Ring of Honor folded originally. He did the Ric Flair's last match. He's done a couple little things, but he needs a championship. And I think the right call last night was to be have Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal pin. Danhausen, just like that finish, that gives the Acclaimed some leeway to work with the Guns. It also gives the Guns like the backtrack that hey, we need a rematch for that, but it also gives FTR returning, and that's when you can have FTR beat the Guns for a number one contendership. Then put FTR versus Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett at Double or Nothing, and then have FTR win the belts there. That gives Jarrett and Lethal something to do. That gives the Guns something to do with FTR. And then once Guns are done with FTR, they can go do that final blow off with the Acclaimed. Everybody has something to do for Double or Nothing.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't think it matters who
Again,
FTR be. Well, see, the storyline is that the Guns talked so much shit and got beat, and then finally they beat FTR, and then they held that funeral segment for FTR, and so the
yeah,
feud, the
and
heat is
I
definitely those.
I get that, and I get that, man. That's why I made the FTR versus the Guns for the number one contendership, and do that for one of their big events, like one of their big dynamites as a main event. That
Yeah,
gets everybody over with that show. And that still puts FTR as number one contenders for Lethal and Jarrett because Lethal needs something. And have Lethal and Jarrett work FTR, can you imagine the story that that match could tell? Rather than just watching a couple of young kids get the fuck beat out of them by, in my opinion, the greatest tag team on the planet today.
and you're not going to get any pushback from me. I think FTR is by far the best. But are we even sure that Lethal's not going to spend most of his time in Ring of Honor? Like,
As it stands right now, it doesn't look like it because he's on AEW every week. He
well,
is becoming a mainstay of AEW, which is where I believe he needs to stay.
I agree.
He's ran Ring of Honor. He's
Yeah.
won multiple championships in Ring of Honor. He was the face at one point.
Hmm.
He needs to distance himself from Ring of Honor and make a name for himself in AEW.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with
My
that
opinion.
plan. I mean, I just, when FTR finally wins it, they need a long run. They've
Mm-hmm.
they've held
They've
belts.
earned it.
They've definitely earned it. They're company guys. I think they put other teams ahead of them along for a while. I know that they're working the Twitter crowd, with Dax talking about
Their
how
contracts.
how their contracts are almost up and how April can't get here quick
Mm-hmm.
enough and all this stuff, but I don't see them going anywhere. I think there's just as much money for them in AEW with the freedom to work everywhere else. Um, I just don't see them
Yep.
going back to WWE.
Well, we also said the same thing about the Good Brothers, and you see where they ended back up because of how shitty they were treated. We're going to give you this $750,000 contract. 3 weeks later, oh, you're fired, and yet they still went back. Sometimes, we don't know what goes on in their personal lives when they're off camera and shit. We do get a little glimpse of it from podcasts such as Good Shit, and if you ever have an opportunity, go listen to FTR with Dax Harwood. It opens your mind so much, not only to FTR's mind thinking as far as how matches are done, but a lot of it is where their mindset is currently now, which is why the way I booked it, I think they're going to stay in AEW just because of how he was talking. Um, shit, I just went blank. I'm sorry. It's still early for me.
Yeah.
But going back to this match, like I said, to me, it was scrambled eggs. Nothing really caught my attention more than just a couple of 4 or 5 second spots, such as the false finish with Jarrett and that finish buffet with Big Dude. And
Sad
then,
name.
as I'm as I'm walking away, I hear FTR's music, and I think I cleared a 10-foot gap from the stairs to my bed in my hotel room as I'm trying to get in front of the TV again to watch this. Like FTR's return was the pop of the night for me. Thank God they're back. I hope they do stay. I hope they get a long run with not only just AEW but every tag team title that they want. And I wish them nothing but the best.
100%. 100%. So now, for the main event, Maxwell Jacob Friedman versus Bryan Danielson 60-man Iron Man match, which we know will never just go 60 minutes. First of all, MJF.
Jesus Christ, dude. Jesus Christ.
MJF looks fucking phenomenal. He's shredded. He hasn't been in ring gear in a couple of months on TV, so we couldn't really tell, but he looks fucking phenomenal. He's put the work in the gym.
Yep.
He's there. The first thing that really jumped out about me on this match is the beautiful chain wrestling.
Yes. And it was all the way. It was all the way through the match. Like it started with chains, and it damn near finished with chains up until the time limit was up at least. That match is the antithesis. Big word. That's the word of the day. Antithesis of what professional wrestling should be. Athletic wise, story wise. It was just so beautiful. There was moments where I started feeling tears in my eyes because of the story that they were telling. It was just fucking beautiful. And let's just go and get it out now. Danielson's cardio rivals Kratos in God of War.
It's crazy.
Let me just say that now. Like this, he is. I know we used to call Kurt Angle the wrestling machine. Bryan Danielson is the wrestling machine. Like there was no part of that match where, for a shoot, he looked blown up. Like the whole 60 minutes, he looked like he could go longer.
Yeah.
And you could tell you could tell he was forcing himself to look blown up in a few spots. Like he's just a cardio beast. Like we strive to have that kind of commitment to have our bodies, and he slimmed down a little bit. I think he was getting called normally like 207, 210. He slimmed down to like 197 for this match. Like he's a freak. And God bless both of them for doing this match and giving me a reason to watch an AEW debut, because originally I was against it until they announced the Iron Man match. I was not wanting to do this review show, but I'm glad that you were able to persuade me into it. Other than the chain wrestling, the shit talking, there was very little shit talking until the end, where it made sense. Nothing in this match was out of place. Everything made sense.
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Say again?
Oh, I was waiting on you to say something.
The elephant in the room. MJF grabbing a lady's ice water and chucking it in the face of a boy who looked like he had legitimately just fallen asleep. Like he was sitting there like this. He was a young kid. It was damn near 11:30. It was kind of fucked up, and I think it took a little bit away from the first couple of falls, because after that death match and then MJF doing that, the crowd was kind of stunned for a while. They were very quiet for the first 15 minutes of that match. And
I think the silence in the Iron Man match for the first few minutes wasn't them being emotionally drained. It was them being emotionally invested to the point that they needed silence to just see where this is going and have it build up. That's where the chain wrestling shit started coming. That's when the storytelling started coming. It's kind of like how New Japan presents their shows. If you go watch an older Wrestle Kingdom 14 is a good example. The start of every match is silent, and as the match progresses, the crowd builds with the match. And to me, I think that was the the forefront of this match. Is it wasn't the crowd was exhausted; they were just so invested for what Danielson and MJF were about to do that it was just more respectful for them to just stay silent. And I
I
know
don't
that's weird in American wrestling, but to me, I think that's where the silence was coming from.
I don't think they were emotionally exhausted necessarily because I think that they had a couple of matches to wake back up. I just think that after everything that happened throughout the night, that was just one more thing that gave the crowd pause. Because we found out later he was not a plant. Like that was
Oh,
straight, you know. And they had to
yeah,
kind
that
of
was a
coddle
shoot.
the kid. They had him backstage hanging out with Powerhouse Hobbs and stuff afterwards to kind of
Yeah,
make sure his night
but
was
also
good. But
take into account this. This was done in California, so it was 11:30 for us when this happened, but it was only 8:30 for them on the West Coast. So it
good
wasn't
call.
exactly like if they did if they did it here in New York or Boston or some shit where it's late as fuck. No, it was only like 8:30 for that kid.
I can, yeah. No, I didn't even think
Now,
about
granted,
that.
it was a school. Now, granted, it was a school night, and I don't know their school system, but still, I mean, 8 o'clock is still like early. So like, I get where you're coming from a parent's standpoint, with us being up at 11:30 at night. Now, I'm fairly sure if we had young children like that, they would not be up at 11:30 at night at a live event. But because this was 3 hours behind us, it kind of made more sense for all those little kids to be there. But to be fair, I can't remember when I saw it. It was about December or January where they started showing this little message on the Tron, and people were taking pictures of it. Of if you are at ringside, you are liable to be talked down to, spit on, something thrown on you, stuff like that. So I think that's how TK is trying to get over that. But don't be surprised if you don't hear anything about a possible lawsuit coming up in the next couple of weeks from that little spot.
Yeah. Um, so going through the match, I think they both kind of pulled out some new stuff. MJF pulled out that hammerlock cradle DDT, which was beautiful.
Hmm.
Um, I love cradle
That's called the
DDTs.
double lock, by the way.
It's a what?
It's called the double lock DDT.
Oh, I had no idea. I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of cradle DDTs, but I thought his with the
Hmm.
hammerlock was beautiful. Um, First
Yep.
fall didn't come until about 25 minutes in. Brian Danielson pulled off that. Um,
The Psycho Knee, I believe.
yep, it was
So
Psycho
yeah,
Knee.
that was good.
It was beautiful. And
And
then
and then
some things that happened that were confusing until they. I mean, I followed it, but it was confusing until till the announcers came through. Was the low blow followed by two pins, and everyone was confused until they explained the low blow gave Danielson a fall for disqualification,
yep.
but then Max did two quick pinfalls as a result of the low blow. Um,
Yeah,
because
that,
the
that
entire
was that was easy. That was easy to follow. At least for me, it was. And it also goes back to the storytelling. Yeah, you got one up on me now, but if I do this, you'll get two. But I can get two quick falls, maybe three, and either be tied with you again or have one up on you. So
no, it was
uh,
great
it was
strategy,
easy
and
to me to follow.
it was a great strategy, and um, there was a reason that the entire announce team from the very beginning of this match kept reinforcing that there was no break between falls. Like
Yeah.
we've
Well,
seen
they,
in the
they they did
past.
explain all those rules They did explain all those rules before the match was even done. So I'm glad that the commentary team kept reiterating that.
Yeah, because it would have been because we've seen Iron Man matches in the past where you get a fall and there's a 30-second or a minute cooldown period to kind of rest
Yep.
up, but not in this match, which is why the low blow caused a fall immediately by 2 more pins.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I then thought it was funny, Taz. Bryan Danielson is like a Wolverine. He goes on you and he's constantly going at you. And I thought it was
Hmm.
fun. Taz referred to him as he's not a fun-loving vegan. He will hurt you. I thought that was clever. Taz is great.
I did not catch that call. I did not catch that. I'm glad
Yeah,
you said something.
he's not a fun-loving
That's good
vegan.
shit. That's such good shit.
Yeah. Um, couple of the awesome spots as MJF came off the top rope onto Danielson, who was on the timekeeper's table on the ground floor or the ground level, and
Oh,
then
that beautiful elbow drop.
oh yeah, it's a
Yeah, that
gorgeous
was
elbow
such a
drop.
gorgeous drop.
And then he went back and did a tombstone through the broken pieces of that table, like it broke in the middle, and then he came in and did a
And,
tombstone onto
and then
a half of it. Um,
yeah, and going back to that tombstone spot, what did he do as soon as he hit the tombstone through the other half of that table? He sold the knee that was being worked on 20 minutes earlier.
yep.
He never forgot that that was being worked on. He never forgot that that was an injured limb. And
Yeah.
that is something a lot of workers today don't take into account. If you work an arm for a good 4 or 5 minutes, that arm's fucked for the rest of the match. If your leg's been worked on for 4 or 5 minutes, your leg's fucked for the rest of the match. But a lot of people don't sell that shit like they're supposed
Yeah.
to.
No.
Kudos to fucking MJF for doing that 20 minutes after he had that spot with his leg. Loved it.
There's a cool psychology that went throughout the match, like when Danielson had taken that elbow through the table, and Doc was over there checking on him. Max basically jumped out of the ring and forced the referee to get into the ring and start the count.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that with, Max and he
That's
always
like,
uses that same referee, Bryce Remsburg. They work so well together. Like at the end of
yeah, they do.
in sudden death when he was like, "Go ahead, hit him with the belt, hit him with the fucking belt. I dare you," and that'll give
Fuck it.
Danielson the
Yeah.
championship, the win. So it was. I really enjoyed him looking back at his days in the old Ring of Honor, and I'm talking about Bryce Remsburg. Like there were some times in Ring
Yes.
of Honor where he became like the odd man wrestler. Like he would do topes and just to play with the crowd. So he's trained in a lot of this
The
stuff,
old super kick spots.
yeah. So
Yeah.
he's a fun wrestler. He's a fun
Love that guy.
referee. Um,
At this
the
point, he's a wrestler. I mean, shit. Let's be real.
there's kind of a funny thing
Um,
where MJF started like squeezing blood out of Danielson's head like it was a pimple.
like a fucking pimple.
It was fucking funny.
Oh my god.
And then
See, that's
finally,
where the blood. That's where blood made sense in a match.
yeah,
I mean, I hate being a dead horse for that fucking death match, but when the blood was drawn from both people on this match, it made sense and it had a place in the story
yep.
of the Iron Man. It's not just because you wanted to fucking do it. And oh my god, what happened when MJF got busted open? Did he hit a fucking artery or some shit? Like
Well,
that
it was
motherfucker oozed.
it was head to head on that diving headbutt.
But dude,
And it was crimson immediately, like flooded his face.
that was that was hard way. That could not have been planned. Like that was straight up hard way. Holy
Yeah.
shit.
And you
I've bled
saw,
before. You've seen me bleed before. I bleed pretty well. I've never bled that good.
no, that was
Anything.
fast bleeding. And the crazy part is is when he stopped bleeding a little later, you could see the fucking goose egg on his head. Like, you can tell
Mm-hmm.
that Danielson
That shit was
made
hard.
connection with that diving headbutt. So we
Yep.
fast forward ahead. The fifth fall, MJ won. He hit the Heat Seeker pile driver at about the 40-minute mark.
Mm-hmm.
Then then following that was when the diving headbutt happened, and I just have written here MJF blood. What the fuck? Like it, dude hit the move, hit the headbutt. The camera went to Danielson, and then 10 seconds later, when they went back to, or 2 seconds later, they went back to MJF, and he's
Yeah.
just red, just crazy.
Yeah. You can't tell me that was planned. That was just that was what we call a botch, and they just made it work.
Yeah,
Kudos. But holy, I can't wait to see some pictures of MJ's face today,
yeah.
just to see how big that fucking goose egg
Then
is.
the sixth fall, Bryan won by submission. And then following
Mm-hmm.
that, there was a kind of an interesting, and it was done purely for the cameras, obviously, but where they both had their heads almost touching but looking the opposite direction, and they showed MJF was
Yep.
crying and Bryan Danielson was laughing. Like, I thought that was an amazing juxtaposition by the visual there. It was like the
Again,
old,
it's the storytelling, man.
it was like the old theater masks where one of them has the crying face and the other one right next to it has the
Yes.
happy face. It was such good storytelling, such good visuals.
Yes.
And can you tell me
And Bryant,
what the fuck was going on with MJF in the water?
um, for shoot, I think he was just getting dehydrated and shit. Because you know if you're in doing any sort of physical activity, you're going to get cotton mouth at some point. I think that was the whole thing because he wasn't really swallowing the water; he was spitting it out. And the last time he did it, Excalibur said something about him not swallowing; he was spitting it out. So I think that's what it was. It was
Yeah.
more or less for him to not get horsed, basically, or bear clawed, as we call it here in the South.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, it's fucking smart, in my opinion. But the fact that Brian went the whole time and didn't do that is again, that's a fucking testament to that man's athleticism and cardiovascular. Like
Yeah.
even like at that spot you were talking about with Brian laughing and MJF crying. Brian wasn't even fucking breathing hard. He was breathing normally while laughing. It was just holy shit.
It was
Like
crazy.
his wife is a lucky woman. I'm gonna just leave that there for a more mature.
The man's got stamina.
He's more than just he's more than just the Iron Man of AEW. He's the Iron Man of the house. You know what I'm saying?
I think we do. Then MJF hit that tombstone off the top rope, which was fucking insanity.
Holy shit, that was wicked, wicked.
So crazy.
Oh, and then he immediately went back to the knee again. He went back to selling his knee again.
Yep.
Kudos to MJF for always being present of where he is and what he's doing.
So then,
But let's talk about that fucking finish
so
of the time limit draw.
So Danielson has MJF in a leg submission. Looks like a single leg crab with the heel hook grabbed.
Yep.
MJF is writhing in pain, and as what happens in a lot of
He
these,
was that motherfucker was crying like a little bitch
yeah.
for that last minute of that match.
And then obviously time goes down. Soon as the horn blows, MJF starts tapping, but of course it's too late. We end in a time limit draw But wait, there's more. Per Tony Khan, we're going to sudden death. So tell us about sudden death, Draven.
Holy shit. MJF lost his shit when he was told that shit. So the bell fucking rings. MJF goes and gets the fucking oxygen tank as Brian's trying to bring him in, whacks him with it. So I'm thinking it's gonna be dirty finish right fucking there. No, motherfucker kicks out. At that point, MJF is getting fucking desperate. He gets a bit of, hold on a second. He is doing whatever the fuck he can to try to get the pinfall. And fucking Brian, he's got Brian in the fucking salt of the earth, the Fujiwara armbar. And then how his shoulders didn't pop out, I will never fucking understand. He took the one arm, scissored it with his leg, and then basically did like a rings of seven with the other arm. And his fucking shoulder blades were fucking touching. Holy shit, it hurt me. And then to put the icing on the cake, he grabs the fucking far leg and fucking wrenches that bitch back almost into like this medieval abdominal stretch looking thing. And Brian still didn't fucking tap out, man. That was fucking unreal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, drinking a lot. I'm thirsty as shit.
Oh, that's good. And
then, go ahead.
so in that situation, I mean, it kind of reminds me of when I would go for a submission. Obviously, anytime he would move a limb, like you said, he had the Fujiwara. Brian was reaching for the rope. He grabbed the arm he was reaching with, tucked it in. Brian Danielson tried to hip over and use his leg to get the rope. MJF grabbed his ankle and kind of had all three limbs tied up, and somehow Danielson walks with his ass cheeks and he gets that toe on.
He got that leg. Yep.
So take us home from there.
Oh, if I remember this correctly, after MJF is having another hissy fit and crying like a little bitch, he goes to grab him, and then Danielson gets him into the label lock, if I'm correct on that. Does not fucking tap out. Somehow reverses the fucking label lock into his own fucking label lock. And from there, I figured Danielson was going to get out because he's the master of his own submission move. But I guess the only way to beat somebody of that stamina is to beat them with their own move, which kind of goes back to the whole Wardlow Samoa Joe thing. It made sense there. It does not make sense here. I believe he should have done it with the fucking Fujiwara. But I don't book AEW shows obviously because they go in a completely different direction than I do. But Danielson taps out to the label lock, your winner, and still AEW World Heavyweight Champion MJF.
But one thing that I think is extremely important, and it shows how brilliant the MJF character is Danielson had him in a submission, okay, and MJF finally inched his way over to the ring and over to the rope. He put his finger on the rope, had the ref see that, and then he tapped out. So Bryan Danielson let go of the pin thinking he won, but it was just MJF, doing his heel shit. And then, it leads to that finish. And I think it was brilliantly done. The whole match I thought was up there with the greatest Iron Man matches I've seen.
It's definitely the greatest AEW match I've ever seen, bar none.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I will say, and this is all the way back to the entrances and stuff, that fucking mask that Maxwell fucking wore to the ring. Like you reading in a little too much to Edge, I think I read into that just a little too much because I remember that mask being used at fucking All Out last year and thinking, especially with him more or less going on with the whole best in the world thing that he's trying to quote unquote. So I was honestly expecting to hear Colt's personality last night. Kind of disappointed that I didn't, but I still understand why that's probably never going to happen. But the fact that he goaded me into thinking that that was going to happen is a testament to how good he really is. And he's only 20 fucking 5. He's not even in his fucking prime yet, my dude.
Nowhere near.
He's still got yeah, he's still got a good 15, 20 years. And as you said a couple of weeks ago, when his contract's up for AEW, Tony better fork out some fucking money, like some serious fucking cash, or he's going to lose him in the bidding war. Because Maxwell's always about where he's going to make the most money. And I promise you, if Hunter gets a hold of Maxwell and he spends his prime years in WWE, no doubtedly, 20 years from now, he would probably be on my Mount Rushmore.
Mm.
But that's 20 years from now. Let's say Tony Khan keeps him in the way he's going now. He will definitely be the Mount Rushmore of AEW. I mean, he is one of the four pillars. But you can only do so much in such a young company. I think, personally, with his talent, I think he needs to go up north for a few years, get that experience, and then come back down. Kind of like how Jericho did it. You know what I mean? Jericho has the knowledge of how up north runs, but he also knows how to use that to his advantage down here in AEW.
Mm. Mm. You may be right. I just, I think it would be a travesty for them to let MJF go. I mean, there's 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 really no scenario to where if Tony Khan didn't want to, he couldn't pay MJF as much, if not more, than WWE. So there's no reason
Mm-hmm.
for them to even let him go at all. I mean, it's almost one of those, almost like Darby Allin, where AEW won't be AEW without him.
Yeah, Darby Allin is the heart and soul of AEW,
100%.
bar none. You
100%.
will not be able to ever change my mind on that. Like and I didn't know Darby like at all before he got into AEW. And then I started going back and seeing what he did, and to know he puts that much effort into small indie companies, and he's putting so much more effort into AEW. He is what Shawn Michaels was in the '90s to WWF. He is just like the centerpiece, and they know no matter what, if they need something, they always have Darby in their back pocket. Excuse me. Kind of like AJ Styles was in TNA. Kind of like how fucking Tommy Dreamer was in ECW. Kind of like how Sting was in WCW or DDP in WCW. He's just one of those guys that no matter what, he will be there and he will give you 100% of what he has.
Yeah, 100%. And well, we're encroaching on 2 hours. I think we've beaten this pay per
This
view into
this
the
is the
dirt.
Iron Man podcast of heel shit. Holy hell!
Hell yeah.
Before we go, I want to get a couple of shout outs. As you know, you sent these over to me. Um, at least on iTunes, we are able to see. We do read your comments. I want to give a shout out to two people from the iTunes community. Robert John 11. He says, super amazing podcast with the best host, highly recommended. My guy, that means a lot to us. Um, Dart, outside of just doing the podcast, does so much for the branding and the advertising. You just have no idea. That means the world to me, at least, that you acknowledge him the way that you do. And then the other one is Lovely 454 said, great podcast, great team, highly recommended. Again, those two, thank y'all so much. Y'all are literally the first two to acknowledge and comment on anything. And it goes to anybody that listens to this podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you have to. reach out to us. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. When I get back from vacation, we'll have the Facebook up and going. Um, y'all have questions, send them to us. If y'all have comments, send them to us. Let your voices be heard. This is a podcast where everybody has a voice. And I at least speak for me. I'm pretty sure I can speak for Dart when we say we are so appreciative of the fact that y'all take the time out of your day to listen to us bullshit and ramble, essentially. Is there anything else you wanted to add on to that, my dude?
No, I think the response has been tremendous. I can't thank you guys enough. Echoing what Draven said. And if you have comments, I mean, especially on the YouTube videos, comment. We'll read them out loud. We'll answer your questions. You know, interact with us. We're here to have fun and share some knowledge. And that's about it. I appreciate you guys more than you know. For Draven Grimes, I am Dark Cordz, Heel Shit Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from. And we will see you next time.